Well, good morning, Connor.
Good morning, Irene.
Is it afternoon yet? Morning? I don't know.
It's still morning.
Still morning. Good, good. I never know, I just get up in the morning, start doing my stuff, and when I'm done, I'm done. I never, sometimes it might be 11 o'clock, sometimes it might be 2, and then I'm like, oh my God, the day's gone.
Yeah, it's been weird since the job shift and doing everything. Yeah, it's been awkward trying to get everything done, but I still get to sleep in, which is nice when I want to.
That's nice.
My husband hates me. He doesn't get to.
There are some nights I go to bed and I'm just like, Paul, I'm not waking you up in the morning. Just leave me alone. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I do. And I'm still up by 7, and he likes to get up at 6:30.
Yeah, well, and I say sleeping in, and sometimes I'll get up at 6 and call it sleeping in, but like today I got up at like 9.
Yeah.
I call that sleeping in.
Yeah.
That's about the latest, so I don't think I ever go past 9.
Oh, see, I'm kind of stuck on 7:30. I can't seem to get past 7:30. Once you hit that, no matter how tired I am, I'm awake.
Yeah, and later on the summer gets worse because like by 7:38 it gets hot and you can't sleep. Mm-hmm. There's just no way.
Yeah, and a lot of people, like my relatives back east, they don't get why I want to get up and go hiking at 6:30 in the morning. I'm like, 1, I'll get up and I'll go hiking without a shower because I'm going to need one when I get back anyway. And 2, if I'm out hiking by 7, I can be out maybe 3 hours before it gets just too hot that I can't deal with it anymore. Yeah. And sometimes, like last summer, I didn't go hiking at all because it was so dang hot. Like 8 o'clock in the morning, it's 95 degrees. And I'm like, yeah, no, not going.
Yeah, that's when I'll go out at 4 or 5 in the morning if I have to. Try to catch the sunrise. It's pretty, or at least it's cool.
I haven't done that yet. And everybody keeps telling me, oh, you're a girl, you shouldn't go hiking that early in the morning. And
oh, no, I disagree. I mean, if you want to catch some of the most beautiful scenery in the plains here, go out on a sunrise, because sometimes it gets just cool enough that the fog kind of creeps over the banks. Mm-hmm. So you'll get that misty effect, but you'll still see the treetops and the plains, and then the sun comes out, and it's just beautiful.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I encourage anybody, don't be afraid. I mean, it's so early in the morning, you don't really have to worry about snakes. It's too cold. You don't really have to worry about a lot of people. I mean, really, it dress warm. Bring your water. Don't be stupid, just like any other hike. But yeah, no, I mean, I really don't want to discourage people from doing that. I think you should. It's good to breathe the sun.
Mine has always been the safety factor versus other humans rather than snakes. I'm not worried about any kind of animal out there because I know if I see a snake, don't engage. If I see, I don't know if I'd see a bear here. I'm used to bears in New York, but if I saw a bear in the distance, go the other way.
There's no bears here.
Yeah, there's no bears here. But if there was some animal, like let's say I saw elk in the distance and you know me, I'm going to want to take a picture of it. Yeah. Once it starts grunting and making noise, all right, we're good.
Yeah, and like I said, even mountain lions, like I said, if you go at 4 or 5 in the morning, I wouldn't be too awfully worried about it.
Yeah,
I mean, be aware of your surroundings, but there hasn't been a lot of sightings of mountain lions, at least around the bluff. More out to the wildcats. Although there was a wildcat, there was a cougar that got into our high school.
Really?
Yeah, a couple of years after I graduated, I think.
Okay.
Somehow. No, I mean, this was about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, but it wasn't hunting anybody. It was just wandering around.
Yeah, it was just like, hey, open door.
Somehow got into the downtown to our high school. And yeah, for those who aren't around here, our high school is in the downtown area. I mean, it's like surrounded by city.
Yeah.
So for how the heck it got there, some people still like conspiracy theory, it's like, someone tranked it and brought it there from a truck or something. It's like, no, I think it somehow wandered down.
Yeah,
into
they
the
do
city
that
in the middle of the night.
Yep.
And they do that because they're usually nocturnal. That's why I say they're like, I wouldn't be too worried about them too early in the day.
Yeah. I went out hiking once out at Mont's Ranch, and there's a little canyon there called Bobcat Canyon. There's a reason why it's called that. And I went down and I hiked as far as I could go, and then literally this wide path that was a good 6 or 7 people wide just narrowed down to like a single lane. And I think it was a cow trail. I didn't know where it went, so I turned around and came back. And when I turned around and came back, there was a little pool of water, and it was moving. I don't know where it originated from, but the water wasn't stagnant. And there were wet paw prints there. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's why it's called Bobcat Canyon. So I took a picture and texted a friend, and I said, I'm pretty sure these are cat tracks, not dog tracks. And she was like, yeah. She goes, where are you? And I told her, and she goes, why are you out there by yourself? That bobcat has probably been, paying attention to you, because we guessed bobcat from the size, but it could have also been a mountain lion. We're not totally sure. But it was definitely cat prints. And I was like, I don't know, I was just out here hiking, just having fun. But yeah, in all likelihood, that cat watched me walk all the way down there and all the way back, but I wasn't bugging it. It wasn't bugging me, so nothing happened.
And as far as I know, I don't think there has been any wildcat attacks here in Scottsbluff. In fact, I'm pretty sure when I was out at the Custer State Park, there was none there either. There's actually far more buffalo attacks. And that was actually quite common to have buffalo attacks because stupid tourists would get too close to the buffalo. But you never heard, even my first year, there was a kid and his 6-year-old brother that went out hiking, and he got bit by a rattler, and the 12-year-old stayed behind because he's the one that got bit. The 6-year-old went off to try to find help. By the time he got help, when we came back, the kid was gone.
Wow.
He was dead, yeah. It was a pretty bad situation. But that's the kind of situation that you get out in the Black Hills. Far, far more common than you ever get a cougar attack or any kind of wildcat attack. And as far as I know, there hasn't been any in the Black Hills.
Yeah, and down here, I've lived here for 17 years. And
there's a good reason for that. You hear about cougar attacks more out maybe in your area out east because there is food being torn from them. Their environment is getting smaller and smaller. Here, and by and large, even in the Black Hills, for now anyway, they're still okay.
Yeah.
They still got the wildlife to feed on. Now, that might not always be the case, especially like out here in the Wildcats. If that gets too much more populated, yeah, we might have more cougar attacks. Right now, they got goats, they got antelope, they got so much prey out there that they don't have much need to hunt for humans. And they're loud. There's a gun range out at the Wildcats, so they're pretty used to the gunfire and to shy away from it. So I just wouldn't be too worried.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the animals. It's always the humans I
except
worry
for the snakes.
more.
I mean, I would be worried about the snakes. Always be worried about the damn snakes out here, because if you get bit by a rattler and you're in the wrong place, you're going to die. Or you're going to have a hell of a time trying not to die. Yeah. So, be aware of the snakes. And honestly, the thing that will kill you the most out here is the terrain. I mean, if you slip off a sharp edge or you get up on one of these buttes and you fall off and you break your hip or you break your leg and you're all alone and somehow in a dead zone where you're not able to get help, that's what's going to kill you.
The last time I was out at Jail and Courthouse Rocks, I was climbing around Courthouse Rock, and I can't climb to the top by myself. I watched a dad and his 2 boys climb up, and he was able to get up to like 2-3 levels above where I was at, but he had to pull his sons up. They could get part way, but not the whole way. And I was by myself, so I'm like, no way I'm even trying that. Oh, but I can walk around Courthouse Rock. I got a good probably 90% of the way around, and then it was very narrow, so I was kind of hesitant for that, and then the wind picked up, and you know what the wind is like here, and it's 300-foot drops at that point in time, so I'm like, I guess I'm going back the way I came. And then when I went back the way I came across a very young rattler, and just took some pictures. I had my 400-millimeter zoom lens with me, so I put that on my camera, took some pictures, and then went around it so that it knew that I was not a danger whatsoever. And it stayed there the whole time. But if I had been bit out there, I don't even know, because I don't check my phone while I'm out there. I'm sure service is spotty, but even there, it's if they could get to me, they still got to climb around the back side of Courthouse Rock because that whole area on the back side is like 200 and 300 foot drops. And it's wide on the back. And then when you try to come back around to the front, it really narrows.
Exactly.
So yes, they probably could run back there and pull me back, but it still would take time to get there.
And we have a chopper service here that would maybe airlink you in and stuff like that. But just like as folks know, we only have so many. I think we only have 2. I think we have 1 in a backup. So you don't have a lot of choppers. So if they happen to be busy at the time, you're kind of effed.
Yep. And to get because maybe an ambulance from the hospital in Bridgeport might be able to come and get me, but that's still a 15-minute car ride.
Yeah, if the
get
ambulance
to
could
me.
get to you.
Yeah.
And those paramedics, I'm talking from experience, being the son of one, they're not hikers.
Yeah.
They're not mountaineers.
Yeah.
They're some of them are pretty chunky.
Yeah.
So they're not going to try you really want the firemen to help you is what you need at that point. You need those firemen to get up there and help you.
Can you come and bring your 300-foot ladder?
Yeah, well, I said they would probably be the ones to come and save you, honestly, because they have a lot more experience in mountaineering and those kind of services.
Yeah.
So those paramedics will wait by the ambulance.
And all around jail and Courthouse Rock, the land immediately close to it is not level.
No, it goes up pretty steep.
I'm not sure. I think the helicopter could land in the parking lot, but I'm not sure. Otherwise, they would have to land in the field next to it, and
or do
then
one of those hover things where
and let some dudes. I would love to climb to the top of Courthouse Rock, but I'm at the age now where the risk isn't worth it to me. I know I have a finite time on this planet and I want to maximize that time. I don't want to do stupid things.
Build a ladder. Get someone to build a ladder and they'll go up, or a staircase, or preferably an elevator.
Yeah.
I love elevators. Those are the best.
So
they got one for the Grand Canyon, for crying out loud.
Are you kidding me?
Courthouse routes. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have an elevator somewhere to the top of somewhere in the Grand Canyon. It's a large canyon. And all those old people can't get up there, so there has to be something. Be some sort of elevator somewhere.
But see, if I'm going to do the Grand Canyon, I want to do it the right way. Go down, suffer. I don't want to. Maybe once I'm down there and I've been hiking around down there for 5 days, I'll be like, let me take an elevator back up. But even then, I'd be like, no, I signed up for this. It's the same thing with Machu Picchu. There's a freaking road or cable car something up there, and the traditional route is 3 days through the jungle. And I'm going, that's how you should get there. But I'm going to be 55 this year, and man, that the easy way sounds nice.
It's Pikes Peak.
Yeah.
Pikes Peak has a tram that goes. I took the tram up. I didn't walk up. I didn't have the time. It'd take a while to get up there. I didn't have the time, so I took the tram.
Yeah.
It's a long ways up there. I can't imagine walking up there. Once I got to the top, I'm like,
nope. Or take something to the top and then walk back. Because going down is...
But going down is terrifying.
Oh, is it?
Going up was pretty scary, but I imagine going down, if it's anywhere near the ridges that tram was on, I don't know.
Okay.
That was pretty terrifying going up. So I'm like, I don't know.
I haven't been up it yet.
It's cool. There's like a little restaurant gift shop at the very top, because of course there is.
Yes.
And of course, the little eagle-eye peepholes, you put the change in and you go and glare out. But apparently on a clear day, you can see Black Elk Peak, which used to be called Harney Peak, out in South Dakota from Pikes Peak.
Wow.
It wasn't a clear day when I went, so I couldn't see it, but that's what I've been told. And vice versa, I've heard if you're on Harney Peak, you can see Pikes Peak on a clear day. So
okay, maybe one day I'll get up one or both. We'll see.
Try. I've been up Black Elk Peak several times. I used to do that like almost every other week. I go hike up there for fun because I was a manager at Sylvan Lakes. I could just go. I could go whenever I wanted. Problem. So I'd go up there, And it'd take all day. I mean, it'd take most of the afternoon to get up and most of the afternoon, rest of the afternoon to get back down. But yeah, it's worth the hike because there's the only really fire tower that's still put together out there is still up there.
Okay.
And very well preserved, so you can go up there and explore, see how the firefighters used to stay up there and watch for fires.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat.
Well, if on a good day you can see that far away, that's pretty impressive, and that job was probably more important than I ever thought it was.
Well,
because I thought they were closer fires, that they were looking like, 5-10 miles, not that far.
It was closer fires they were looking for. I mean, it was within the vicinity, but
Okay.
and it was one of many. I mean, these kind of fire towers were scattered throughout the Black Hills, but throughout the time and technology and all that, they just became obsolete. So they just went into ruins, except Harney Peak, largely because it's a sacred site too to the Lakota. It's the only place where a mayor of Rapid City was buried, Mayor Valentine. I believe, anyway, he was buried up there. He was the only one by the permission of the Lakota people.
Okay.
Because it's still one of their sacred sites, so you have to get certain permissions.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Lots of history up there. That's the advantage of being the Sylvan Lake manager is you kind of had to know. You got a couple of books when you got that job. It's like, okay, know your history because all these people are going to start
They're going to ask you questions. And I don't know doesn't cut it.
Nope, none at that time. Nope, not at that time.
Oh, gosh. But today we're staying back where we're at. I'll talk about this at the end when we're done, some ideas for some future episodes. But last time we talked about the Battle of Mud Springs, and that's much closer to us. And at the end of the battle, the Native Americans retreated. I really struggled for some reason with this because do I write the tribes? Do I write Native Americans? Do I write Indians? Do I write American Indians? And I went with Native Americans because I'm like, it works. I'm not trying to be offensive. And even when I was reading Colonel Collins's report, he was even just using it as the Indians, these group of people. It wasn't like those Indians.
But it was multiple tribes though, right? It wasn't just the Lakota, it was the Cheyenne.
It was Lakota, Cheyenne,
and one of the other ones.
Oh my gosh! Now it went out of my head because
this is why we don't write them, folks.
Yeah. That's why I write things down because I can't remember stuff. But the Lakota, the Cheyenne, they are Arapaho.
Oh, the Arapaho. Okay.
And he wrote toward the end of his report because we referenced his report last time and stopped at the Battle of Mud Springs, where they caught up to them before this one started. But at the end of his report, he indicated he thought there were other tribes as well, but for sure those three. So the Battle of Mud Springs ends, the Native Americans retreat, and Lieutenant Collins Lieutenant Colonel William O. Collins, I just demoted him massively by calling him lieutenant instead of lieutenant colonel.
Shame on you.
I know, I'm terrible. He was with the 11th Ohio Cavalry commanding Eastern Subdistrict of Nebraska. When I was reading all this information about the Battle of Rush Creek, which we're going to cover today, it's just interesting how all these folks are from all these other faraway places, and they're stationed in Mitchell and Fort Laramie. It's just, I don't know, it's interesting to me. I mean, I guess it would be the same if, you sign up for the military and you get stationed in Seoul, South Korea.
My friend got stationed in Fort Drum, New York.
Oh my God! No.
He was not happy.
No,
it was not a very happy deployment.
There's not really anything there.
Winter training, apparently.
Yeah.
Lots of winter training.
Good winter training.
You get that guy in a blizzard, boy howdy. He's the guy you want to be
with. So Collins took 185 men with him to pursue the Native Americans. He didn't realize that there would be more people than had attacked Mud Springs, but what he found when they got to Rush Creek was an abandoned camp and so much more. So today on Storytelling on the Plains, we're going to talk about the fighting that ensued in what became known as the Battle of Rush Creek. I got an eye appointment in 2 weeks, and my glasses are 4 years old, and it's really starting to show. So I apologize for stumbling. I don't know if it's just because the glasses are old, but last year when I went, they told me my vision had actually improved. So I don't know what's going on, but I have to move my head like less than a millimeter I can't even just go left or right on the page with my eyes. I have to move my head, and if I move it just wrong, then everything's slightly out of focus, and then I stumble over words.
Maybe it is getting better.
So my appointment's in a couple of weeks, so hopefully this problem will go away. Not in a couple of weeks, because of course you get your glasses and then you got to wait 9 years before they get up to you. So there are also other reports about the Battle of Rush Creek. One is from a Private Nelson, who reported that 180 to 190 men were with Collins, but a lot of historians have come to the conclusion that it was likely more, around 140 men. So
yeah.
Give or take. Yeah, give or take, say around 150. It's still a bunch of men he took to go after the Native Americans. So Collins was trying to prepare for any situation, and he wrote in his report, "The country is very broken, and in Indian fighting, an attempt to surprise is always probable." And anyone who has come out here to western Nebraska can attest that much of that sentiment holds true today. There are many places where the landscapes change or is broken, and one can imagine being back there in early February 1865. So you're dealing with the snow and the uneven and broken landscape, and you don't necessarily know where it's at because now you got some snow on it too. And it's still that a lot of western Nebraska is still that way.
Yeah, and the only real evidence that you ever see nowadays here in the fields are you'll see large piles of stones, and those are usually called field stones that the farmers will dig out, and they'll pile them all in the corner. So, but those used to be everywhere, obviously, scattered throughout pretty evenly throughout fields and things, and those are what your horses would stumble over. It wasn't flat, country land. It wasn't a polo ground,
Yeah, and I was thinking, one of my favorite views when I do drive up to Alliance, what is it, 92 hooks to 385? Is that right? It's 92? No, 92 is, no, it's 26.
26, yeah.
At that T intersection, if you just keep looking east, you can see a great example of how the land changes like that. And it's in the summertime, it's absolutely beautiful. Yep. You can see the brokenness a bit more in the winter, but in the summer, it's just beautiful. It just looks like awesome rolling hills that shift here and there. And,
Same if you go out north towards past Harrison, you get out to the actual Pine Ridge. And
it's just gorgeous,
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
And if you think about it, Collins is from the 11th Ohio Cavalry, so he's not from here, and he's fighting people who live here and know the land very well. So, he knows he can be surprised at any moment because he doesn't know the land. So how do you prepare for that kind of stuff? In my opinion, they chased him off from Mud Springs. They should have just let him go, but... it's 1865. I guess that's what you do instead of, playing on your Nintendo. So once they got to the Rush Creek area, they were quite surprised at what they had found. Collins wrote about how he found the spoils of ranches and trains scattered everywhere. And if you remember from our last episode, when they left the Sand Creek Massacre, they performed raids all the way up along the line and stole stuff. So they raided ranches, they raided trains, they burned Julesburg to the ground. So they took what they could. And basically there were 2,000 to 5,000 Native Americans who were moving away from that location of the Sand Creek Massacre in Colorado. and they had assumed that they could camp down in the area near the mouth of Rush Creek for a longer period of time in order to rest their horses, but the Battle of Mud Springs changed that, and they needed to keep going. So my guess is, and I haven't read any records that specifically say this, but my guess is that they didn't expect that kind of military response at Mud Springs. I think they expected to go in, swipe the horses, go back to Rush Creek, rest everybody up, and then keep moving north. Bless you.
Excuse me.
Bless you. So, it makes sense that when Collins gets here, the camp is abandoned because they're like, yeah, we can't stay here anymore. So Collins and the rest of the folks at Mud Springs had no idea there were so many people nearby. And he wrote in his report, I believe it was on the 16th, it was now clear we had underestimated the numbers against us. With a field glass, they could be distinctly seen and examined. There were at least 2,000 warriors in sight. It was evident that all the hostile Indians that had been committing depredations and holding the countries along the South Platte were concentrated there. The river was about half a mile wide and frozen over. When we were looking for a crossing, they saved us the trouble by commencing to swarm down to the river banks and come over the ice, not opposite, but 1 or 2 miles above and below us. We had barely time to corral our train before they were upon us on every side. The position chosen was the best we could get, but there were many little sand ridges and hollows under cover of which they could approach us. A very great change had come over the men since the morning of the fight at Mud Springs. They were rested and free from excitement, had confidence in their officers, obeyed orders, and went to work with a will. So it's a different battle from Mud Springs just a couple days ago, because the soldiers that got to Mud Springs, what was it, 36 hours, I think? They hightailed it over there, they no sleep, not a lot of food. But now they had time to rest at Mud Springs. Even though they had been fighting, they still had time to rest. So I imagine they're kind of angry, and now that they've had some food and had some rest, they're like, yeah, let's go. So very different men you're trying to command than 2 days ago. Collins estimated at least 2,000 warriors, but I've seen reports of 1,000 to 2,000. Again, we're quibbling over small numbers here. 1,000 warriors is still a lot against, 140 to 190 men? Even 1,000 is a lot of men. Although they weren't expecting the soldiers to pursue them, the Native Americans still jumped into action and took their positions in the hills north of the river. And again, if you've never been out here, there are many places where you got a nice flat spot to rest a group of people and horses, but there are always hills nearby. Mm-hmm. And if you've got a few minutes, you can easily go and hide among them and ready yourself, which is what I suspect most of the Native Americans did. Some of them ran directly toward the soldiers, but I'm betting that was probably a distraction so the other ones could go hide.
There's always a hill to come over.
Yeah. Collins even attested to the fact that the Indians of the plains are the best skirmishers in the world. In rapidity of movement, sudden wheeling, and hanging over steep and difficult ground, no trained cavalry can equal them. So he already knows I don't understand why he went. I mean, maybe he thought it was just a couple hundred men from Mud Springs, and he was like, oh, we can go, we can match them, we can take them. But in my opinion, if I'm Collins, I don't know if I engage them once I see how many there are.
That's interesting.
I got 150 dudes, and there's easily 1,000 people there. He says 2, but let's just go for the low end. I had 150 dudes fighting with me, and there's thousands here.
Yeah, but there's still the idea of, you have your pride. If he backed down, then would he look like a coward to his fellow men, kind of thing,
Yeah.
That's all kind of comes down to pride, I wonder.
Yeah, because you can call me a coward all you want, Connor.
Yeah.
It means you get to call me a coward, and I'm alive. I'll take it. But
to Collins, it could have meant a demotion.
Yeah,
could have easily meant a demotion.
True. Yeah, and we weren't in his mind, so we don't know. So Collins took defensive measures at first. He noted that the warriors quickly and boldly ran toward him and his men before retreating due to the hail of bullets. And I forget, that wasn't in his report. It was in another article. Said that it was a hail of bullets coming at him. So eventually the battle became a test of skill at sharpshooting, and both groups proved to be adept at these tasks. A group of 10 to 15 Native Americans about 400 yards away were protected by a small knoll, and Collins had noted that they became so annoying to him that he was determined to get them out of their vantage point. So they were well protected. There was no way to use the best sharpshooting skills on the planet. They're not getting out of that area from a sharpshooter. So he's like, we need to move them. So a detail was made of 16 mounted men, part from the detachment of Company D, 7th Iowa Cavalry, and part from a detachment of the 1st Battalion, 11th Ohio Volunteer Cavalry. The party was placed in command of Lieutenant Patton, 11th Ohio Volunteer Cavalry, and he was ordered to charge at full speed, revolvers in hand, to clear out the Indians behind the hillock, and having done so, wheel and return immediately. It was admirably done. The sulkers were routed and fled. So that's what Collins wrote. And at the same time, there were 130 to 200 Native Americans on that hillock. So the ones he's going after are behind the hillock, and these 130 were on the hillock and directly between Collins and the guys he wants to move. So these Native Americans swarmed down from their spot to save their men and engage with the soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. So from the best that I could read, they did manage to get the dudes out, but their fellow Native Americans kind of provided some cover so they could get out. Collins just kind of left that bit out. He just said we were successful. They moved out. We were
successful.
Yeah. So Private John A. Harris, Company ID, Idaho, Company ID, 7th Iowa Cavalry. Sorry, guys, I'm not a military person. I'm used to one letter for a company, not two, who fell in the fight, and Private William H. Hartshorn, Company C, 11th Ohio Volunteer Cavalry, a veteran, were killed in the fighting. And it makes me wonder, and unfortunately my friend Jack passed away. I worked with a guy named Jack Hartshorn. He grew up in South Dakota. He actually went to school K through 12 with Tom Brokaw.
Oh, wow.
And Jack started at the Star-Herald. I don't know. I forget the name of the job. It was some menial job, and he worked his way all the way up. And when he retired, he worked there 40-some years. When he retired, I'll just try and explain this in layman's terms. He set the paper. So he would get a report, here are the ads, and he would place the ads where they're supposed to go, and then he would tell us, we either had an 8, a 12, a 16, or 20, 24-page paper. And then he would send that PDF over to the copy desk, and the copy desk would fit the stories in. And so he went from that being done manually to the old-timey machines to a computer that he just literally, it was drag and drop by the time he retired. And he was really an awesome dude. He retired at, I believe he was 77, and he passed away at 79. But he just, at one point he was like, yeah, no, I'm done working. It's time to go. Okay, dude. But it made me wonder, this guy was a private out here. It's not a common name, and I don't really know Jack's history, but it very well could have been that even though this dude is from the Ohio Volunteer Cavalry, maybe some of his family eventually moved west to South Dakota where he grew up. Just because Hartshorn isn't a very common name.
Yeah, I don't hear it very much.
And same with my maiden name. There's a city in California that is my maiden name. I'm assuming there's some relation. Whoever it was that founded that town probably came from my family, which is all over New York with that name. Yeah. It's very likely. I just have never researched it. So anyway, maybe one day I'll have to do a story on Jack just because Jack was pretty cool and I think he deserves a story. We'll do one day on Jack, and it'll probably be mostly reading from the story my friend Steve wrote about him when he retired from the paper, because Steve did a very, very nice, it was like 3 pages in the paper, story of Jack and his dedication to the paper. So anyway, back to our story. Collins wrote in his report that he wasn't sure if Hartshorn rode into the thickest of the Native Americans because his horse was really spirited, or if it was his inability to control the horse. But once he was in, he didn't survive. Collins also reported that many Native Americans were killed and wounded, but didn't give a number. In addition to the 2 deaths of his men, 9 soldiers were wounded, and the small band of warriors retreated so that the soldiers were able to go retrieve the body of Harris. So at this point in time, we don't have Hartshorn. Collins is going to give a description here of collecting Hartshorn's body, and I have some more detail about that in a moment. But Collins wrote, the Indians had no time to scalp him or take his arms or clothing, and they were brought in with him. The body of Hartshorn was found the next morning about 1 mile from our camp, horribly mutilated with 97 arrows sticking in it. So Harris was much closer to them, and when they were able to push the Native Americans back, they could go grab his body. So he was killed, and no Native Americans were able to get close to him to take anything. It's not unlikely that some chief of note was killed by him, Hartshorn, or someone else led the charge, and that each one of his relations and friends put an arrow in him and left it, as it is sometimes their custom. Both bodies were brought to Fort Laramie for burial. I desire especially to call attention to the conduct of Lieutenant Patton and his little body of men. The charge was a very gallant one, and the desired objects were fully accomplished. Toward night, we could not bring the Indians in reach of our fire. They retired behind the hills and were returning across the Platte until dark, when very few seemed to be on the south side of the river. So according to the summer 1996 edition of Nebraska History magazine, they ran an article titled, "We Had a Terribly Hard Time Letting Them Go, The Battles of Mud Springs and Rush Creek, February 1865, by John D. McDermott. And McDermott wrote about what happened to Hartshorn was not uncommon in the Indian Wars. So Collins was telling the truth in his report. Hartshorn, McDermott goes into great detail about this. So the basic summary is Hartshorn rode an unruly horse and declined another horse after being asked not to ride that one. McDermott goes into like 4 or 5 paragraphs about it. But that's the basic gist of it. Dude, your horse won't obey you. Just take another one. No. Yeah. So his horse was known to run away often and at the first opportunity, which is probably what happened here. His horse ran away, and once it bolted, there wasn't anything Hartshorn could do. Unfortunately, it bolted straight into the Native Americans. Witnesses said that Hartshorn hit his horse on the side of the head, trying to turn it around, but the warriors enveloped him before he could gain control. At the end of the day, Collins sent a detail of men to water the horses and mules, but some of them mistakenly went north. toward the North Platte River, where they found the body of a warrior killed that day. So they don't even know where Hartshorn is at this point in time. They're just going to get their horses watered. So the body of the Native American was on the ice, and as they approached it, a group of Cheyenne and Sioux came running toward them. Collins ordered a retreat, and when the soldiers returned in the morning, the body was gone. So it's not even sure if that was a body or if it was just a dude playing decoy. We'll never know. Throughout the night and into the morning, Collins had his men prepare for battle and to find favorable positions. At sunrise on February 9th, the Native Americans appeared while the soldiers were eating. Collins said they counted at least 400 mounted warriors. A skirmish ensued, but by noon, most of them were gone. Collins wrote they were evidently hurrying away into the sandhills to overtake their families that had gone on the day before. A few scouts could be seen on the other side of the river, left to watch us, and when we moved up the river, we saw them, 8 in number, crossing to our deserted camp like wolves to pick up something as a trophy or to dig up or scalp any dead they might find. So this is right around noonish. They encountered these Native Americans looking at something. You're going to find out what that something is here in a second. So McDermott explains this in more detail because, again, Collins is just giving basic facts and making himself look as good as possible. The riders crossed the river and a few shots were exchanged, but soon the horsemen withdrew, recrossed the river, and headed rapidly north. About this time, the troops observed a few Indians standing on a bluff about a quarter-mile away, apparently interested in some object. Lieutenant Brown ordered a gunner to double-shot the howitzer, and the ensuing blast sent the last of the Indians on their way. A party of 20 went up to where the Indians had last been seen. There lay the body of Private Hartshorn, the head crushed, one arm cut off at the shoulder, one hand amputated, both legs severed at the knee, the breast cut open, and the heart gone. One eyewitness counted 97 arrows in the body, another 98. Soldiers placed the bodies of Hartshorn and Harris in a wagon for later burial at Fort Laramie. So Collins wasn't...
It was a bit more gruesome than just 97 arrows.
Yeah. And Collins also just said, his body had been badly mutilated. Detail it. Why is it not in your report?
A little badly mutilated.
Yeah.
That's like,
Yeah, that's...
pretty hellacious stuff there. I don't even think they did that to Custer.
I don't think so, yeah. And Collins also didn't mention anything about Lieutenant Brown is the one that chased them away by ordering the howitzer to go off. So they ran off. He's just like, they just went away. So that I don't know. I question people's integrity when they leave crap out like that. You're a leader because you supposedly know how to delegate and give the dude credit when he helps you. To me,
maybe he's illiterate. Most of the better leaders were. They weren't the most eloquent of writers.
And this.
So maybe he just put maybe he didn't know how to exactly articulate without sounding stupid what he was
doing.
So he's like badly mutilated. I've seen cops do that.
Mm-hmm.
Cops do that all the time. You can tell
they
the
leave
ones.
out.
My mom would always say you could tell the ones that are shitty reporters because there are people who would meticulously write out the report, and then there'd be like people that's like, head gone, ... kind of thing. Not a lot of detail.
Okay, so how is the head gone?
I wouldn't be too surprised that
it was something like
thing,
that.
Just incompetence. It wasn't articulate in writing, so he's just like, this is the closest that I can put down.
Okay. See, this is why I have Connor here, because
I'm a dyslexic writer, yeah, I know.
that was not where I was going.
I'd be one of those people who'd be like, leg that way, head that way, guts everywhere.
See, and my brain was just going, Jesus, Connor. Yeah, but that's why I have you here, because you know things that I don't know.
I know stupid people, yeah.
Again, that was trying to praise you and you downplay it. Okay. Yeah. So, to me, this is also another example of why you need to look for sources, accounts, and details. If you just go by Collins's account, there's gaps. Not everything's filled in. And other people have other perspectives, and other people can fill in gaps that are there. So Collins wrote in his report, Hartshorn's body was mutilated, but McDermott explains in detail exactly what happened.
Very, very gruesome
and
detail.
Mutilated just does not have the same effect as this is exactly what happened, dude. And
the heart cut out and gone thing seems a bit over the top for the Cheyenne or the Lakota or the Arapaho. I mean, that seems a little over the top for them.
So I
don't know, unless there's a big grudge. And again, like you said, there's a lot of anger at this time.
Yes.
So
yeah, and so were they retaliating for what happened at the Sand Creek Massacre? Could be, and it could just be that Hartshorn just happened to be the dude that got all of their anger.
And there's bloodthirsty leaders on all sides of this war. I mean, it's not just like all the white lieutenants and Custer-like people were the bloodthirsty ones. There were plenty of the Lakota leaders that were just as ruthless, as bloodthirsty, and as vengeful.
Yeah.
I mean, they saw this going on to their people, and they wanted to send a message that was a little bit more on the nose than just scalping them.
Yeah.
So that could have been it too.
And I admit as well, I did not have time to research and find everything George Bent wrote about the Native American side. So we don't know. Did he attack someone important? Was it just someone that snapped?
What tribe was it? Because
who did it?
There's still a lot of contention about that, and there's a lot of things that are said nowadays, and again, I don't want to get into stereotypes, and I don't want to even go down that road, but there has been talks about some tribes being more hostile than other tribes. It's how we got to the Indian Wars, and how we made friends and enemies and all that. So we know they were more hostile than friendly, and rather that disposition was amongst those three tribes. I've heard, I've been told by other Native Americans that, these guys were way worse than we were for these reasons, that kind of thing. So,
and I've seen folks from those tribes chatting with each other, and they do the good-natured ribbing about, you guys were worse than we were. Oh, yeah, but you guys did the,
exactly. It's like, you did that one thing that one time ago, and it's like and old stories get passed around.
Yeah.
So.
And it's very well known that certain tribes were more warlike than others,
or just less tolerant to the white folk, which was fine. In my opinion, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that at that time.
And like Crazy Horse, who we will get to Crazy Horse one day, but at the time, all of the other band leaders within the Lakota were telling him to surrender. He's like, no, dude, I just want to keep my life. I want to keep my life the way it's been. And then you had people like Red Cloud, who at the time, some people thought Red Cloud and some other Morning Star and some other folks were wrong for what they did. Well, Morning Star was Cheyenne. Anyway, there were some
people there were more of the chiefs that were about diplomacy.
Yes, and wanted to find
that were about fuck you.
Yeah,
and we're gonna do our thing.
Yes, and the chiefs that wanted the diplomacy were thinking long term. We want everybody to live, men, women, and children, and to have a future. And we can't beat the military, so they try and find a good compromise. And then you have people like Crazy Horse. We're like, no, this is our land. I'm not going down without a fight.
And I think it was a lot of the old versus the young too. I think like Red Cloud, I think was much older than
Yes.
Crazy Horse and had
Absolutely.
a lot more years of experience, and be like, hey, you kind of are, a bit of a young pup in all this. I get you got your teeth, but maybe listen to me. We gotta, and again, really at the end, was either side right? I don't know, because they both, whatever side you were on, you suffered.
Yes.
At the end of this battle, I mean, neither Red Cloud or Crazy Horse won ultimately, in my opinion. So
and we don't know from this as well. We don't know who the individuals were that killed Hartshorn, or who put the arrows in him, or mutilated him. We don't know if it was they witnessed something similar at Sand Creek and just snapped, and we're like, we just don't know.
And there wasn't enough knowledge, like if McDermott, honestly, I think, if I remember correctly, just like medieval Europe, a good indication of how you would know the tribes was from the fletchings of the arrows. So if McDermott really paid attention to those fletchings, he probably could have gotten the tribe.
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure.
And I don't know if anybody saved that.
I've been told that Native Americans had the same sort of fletching system that the Europeans had, is that they would fletch depending on where you were, what tribe you're from, or what army you're from. You fletched your arrows. And for those who don't know, the fletchings are the feathers at the ends that makes them, the 3 feathers that make them go straight. Those are all different. Yeah. It was almost an indicator, almost like a mark on a bullet nowadays. Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody wrote any of that stuff down.
Probably didn't mark the fletchings.
I would guess, just from the detail that McDermott wrote, that if he had access to that, he would have figured it out. Yeah. And again, what was that, 66 was the Nebraska History Magazine edition. So we're back almost 60 years that I'm talking about an article he wrote, and he's writing 100 years after it happened.
Yep.
So
we're getting into rough territory.
Yeah. So farther pursuit. Sorry, you got one of those tickles in your throat, and it just doesn't. So farther pursuit would have been injudicious and useless. With their numbers, they could at any time compel our small party to corral and fight. We could drive them off and follow again with the same result, but could not afford to give them the least advantage. In following them to Low Kikor, we should be in the sand hills, when they would have had greatly the advantage in ground and where our stock could not subsist. In each engagement, the Indians fired everything around them that would burn. We continued to see the smoke of their fires as they went north for at least 50 miles. So Collins realized at some point overnight, because they finally broke camp around 2, which we're going to get to in a second. But he realized, we can keep chasing them, but we're going to chase them. We're going to have a skirmish. They're going to burn crap down. They're going to move north. The same thing's just going to keep happening. And he's right. The livestock they had with them don't do well in the sand hills. And
that burning could easily lead them astray.
Yeah.
Because you could have a very small band break off from the other and just keep burning complete opposite direction.
Yep.
And you'd be screwed.
Yep.
So and they knew this. Yep. I mean, the Native Americans were not dumb. They knew this very keenly.
Yeah. So at least at this point in time, Collins finally realized, stop chasing these dudes. So being able to see those fires that far away says there were a lot of Native Americans in the group. We're still never going to know the full number.
Or maybe. Yeah. Because again, like I said, they weren't dumb.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 10 of them that knew exactly what to look for a large number of armies. Because what were they looking for before the Europeans showed up? I mean, they would know what a large army based on fire smoke would look like. Yeah. So like, well, hey, I can make that trick. Boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm thinking, in addition to all of this as well, the soldiers were tired.
I give up.
I know they got some sleep and they got some food, but they had a good 400 miles in them in under 10 days.
And if you
That's
guys
a
have
lot
ever
of
been
traveling.
and if you've ever been out to the sandhills, it sucks. Even nowadays, there's nothing out there.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of towns.
And
there's
it's-
a few. There's no resources. There's no water. There's no trees.
Yeah.
There's nothing to look at. It really is a horrible part of the world.
And most of their travels had been done at night. So it's also cold outside.
Yeah, and top of all that, it's freezing.
And McDermott found that a lot of their meals were hardtack, and they had some raw meat. So it's not even good food. Mm-hmm. It's just food to keep you alive. And the Native Americans had already swiped a good chunk of their horses back there at Mud Springs. You know, just swallow your pride, go back. You're
so
done.
Were
it's
all
done.
these people on horseback? Or were these people on foot and horseback, these soldiers?
It didn't say, but I was under the impression that, like, you know, the officers were on.
To get there in that amount of time.
Yeah, and the ones that were actually assigned to the cavalry. Mm-hmm. And I think this second skirmish at Rush Creek, everybody was cavalry, so they all had horses.
Gotcha.
And so your horses are tiring too.
Yeah.
So it's time to just say, you know, I don't think either at Mud Springs or Rush Creek, I don't think anybody won or lost. Technically, I would probably give it to the Native Americans because they swiped a whole bunch of horses and they didn't have to give them back. So to me, that's a win. But really, it was just skirmishing and no one's achieving anything.
Well, it was just another one of many, many battles that happened during that time.
Yeah. So Collins reported, we broke camp about 2 o'clock, moved up the Platte about 15 miles, where the command was divided, part under Lieutenant Brown, 11th Ohio Volunteer Cavalry, going on to Camp Mitchell and Fort Laramie, which had been left with insufficient garrisons, and the remainder returning to Mud Springs with me. On the morning of the 10th, I took about 75 men and proceeded to Pole Creek, which is Lodgepole Creek, to open communication with Julesburg. So that's something else that, fortunately, nothing happened in these 10 days. But Camp Mitchell and Fort Laramie, they weren't properly staffed because Collins took them all over to help out. They got a call for help, so they all went. So they need to get those dudes back. On his way to Lodgepole Creek, Collins met with Captain John Wilcox of the 7th Iowa, who had commandeered some men to repair the telegraph lines. And if you remember in our last episode about Mud Springs, they kept the Native Americans kept cutting the lines, and they had to jerry-rig some stuff. So Lodgepole Creek Station had been torched. Eastward, the damage was even worse, and Collins later said the Indians had evidently good teachers and did their work well. They have got over the superstitious idea that it is bad medicine to touch the telegraph. So they did a good number on the telegraph lines.
I'm sure it didn't take very long.
No.
Something like these stupid people.
I'm sure once they learned what the telegraph was and what it did.
Laughed. I hope they laughed. I would have.
I would have.
If I found out that that this whole magical process of how you guys get information back and forth were completely reliant on these two wires never being broken. I mean, you can imagine.
I'm going to go break them all.
You could imagine some Native American myth being tied around that. It's like, oh, if I don't break these two ropes, the communication will be severed. And someone's like, oh yeah, click.
Yep.
What is that? Well, what is that Greek? The Gorgon's knot. Was that what it was called?
Oh, the Gordian knot?
The Gordian knot?
Yeah.
That Alexander just cut to solve. That'd kind of be my thing. It's just like, well, yeah, I'm going to solve this problem right now. Shink. It's like, problem solved. Oh, you repaired it? Look at that. Shink.
Yep.
Look at that.
Fix it again. makes me think of in the what was it, Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the dude is like whipping his whip around or his sword around, and he's ready to, and Indy just pulls his gun out,
Exactly.
like done.
Well, and the natives had the same idea when they figured out about the rail lines. I mean, same kind of concept.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're very dependent on these two metal tracks never being disturbed for this whole communication thing to work. Otherwise, it kind of fails. And when you put it that way, it's pretty easy to break, you know?
Yep. So Collins reached Fort Mitchell on February 11th and Fort Laramie on the 14th, where he made his report of all his losses of human and livestock. His report varied from George Bent's, who said no Native Americans died and only two, a Cheyenne named Yellownose and a Sioux who was unnamed, were injured. I haven't been able to find, I mean, granted I ran out of time, but I would love to read George Bent's stuff. I just learned about him a few weeks ago, and he fought in a lot of skirmishes in the Indian Wars and wrote about them from his point of view. And like we discussed in the last episode, he was part Native American. I don't know enough about him yet to know whether it was his mom or dad that was Native American.
Sure.
But I did read a little something that he struggled, and I saw children with more than one ethnicity when I was a child struggle.
Because you're not accepted by anyone.
Yeah.
That has to be horrible.
Yeah. And it was probably more pronounced. Mm-hmm. Although I think he was probably more accepted by his tribe, which is why he stayed with them, and he felt more allegiance and familial connection to his tribe rather than his other ethnicity. I'm not sure if it was, white, black, Mexican. I'm not sure.
But you still get that nowadays. I mean, you still get, like, if you're from Mexico, you're Mexican, but there's a lot of people who are immigrants here that are from not Mexico, from Venezuela, from Guatemala, and if you call them Mexicans, they get quite offended, and they probably have the right to be so.
Yeah.
Be like if you call me a Canadian, it's like, hey, whoa, hey there.
Yeah.
Hey there, whoa, wait there, hey, wait there 1 second there, I'm American.
And I know, and I also know when my mother-in-law was here, she kept mistaking Mexicans for Native Americans.
Oh, and that's a big no-no.
Yeah.
They get awfully offended.
And when I tried to correct her on that, she's like, "Oh, well, they all look the same," and I'm just like, "Okay, walking away, walking away."
I say that, but there is actually another group that get very offended about because they are mixed. And I have a friend who is out in California. He is a Native American Mexican. He is both. He's a Latino, I should say. He's of both cultures. So, and there are plenty of those people too. So, especially the further south you go, that is very prevalent, where you actually get Spaniards and natives making what we now call Mexicans, Latinos, whatever's culturally appropriately to say now. But so there's that thing too. But if you call a pure-blooded Lakota Hispanic, he'll probably get an earful. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I just always try to stick with, like, if I was describing you got a shaved head, you wear a hat all the time, you have a beard and mustache, you're tall and skinny. And I just try and stick with things like that. I mean, I could say, oh yeah, he's a white dude. But I try to stay away from that because I don't want to offend someone, and if I don't know them well enough, I don't know their history.
All you have to do for me is say, just say he has freckles and most often a sunburn. You'll find him right away. It has nothing to do with race.
And if I could remember your tattoos, I would describe them, but I would just be stuck with he's got more on his left than on his right.
No one really stares at my tattoos, I've noticed anymore.
Yeah. Because they're common now. Like,
they are common.
When
mine look enough like prison tattoos that people are just like,
and he's got a shaved head. Let's stay away from. See, and I worried about that when
you shaved your head.
No,
okay.
I haven't had the balls to do that yet. When Paul joined Army ROTC in college, and he went to boot camp down at Fort Knox, I worried that people, because he's walking around several days a week on campus, and he loves his Doc Martens. And now he's got a shaved head, and he's a white dude. And I'm just like, and now I don't even think about it for the most part.
Well, well, especially after you hear him talk.
Yeah, let him open his mouth and be like, yeah, he's not from here. It's
like
good.
Whatever gang you're a part of, buddy, it has nothing to do with me.
Oh, but yeah, so I try and avoid all of that. But I would like to learn more about George Bent, and hopefully I'll have the time. I went through sorting my books out yesterday, and I want to get a stack of, I haven't read these, I need to read these and get rid of them, because I literally have 6 bookcases full of books. I've read about 4 bookcases of books. Some of them I can get rid of now, and then the other 2 I want to read. I don't want to buy any more books till I've read the ones I have. And anyone who enjoys reading knows that I'm going to fail at that, because that's just how it is. It's like I'm not buying any more books, and then, oh my God, did you hear about this book? Oh, I got to buy it,
It's so hard to find the time to read books. Which brings us to our sponsor. No, just kidding.
No, yeah, we don't have one of those yet. But part of it, my pleasure reading has diminished because I read for this. This is still pleasurable reading, but it's not like, like W.E.B. Du Bois wrote a book about Reconstruction in the United States, and I really want to read it. But it's like that's time taken away from this. So I haven't found that balance yet of time. And when I do, I'll get it sorted. I'm still trying to find my life again after the passing of my mom, because so much time was dedicated to her and trying to make her life better and more comfortable.
Yeah, now you got that time free.
And so I'm trying to figure out a good schedule. And my husband also just started a new job, and his schedule is different. So I'm trying to find where is that balance and how do I figure that out. So once I figure that out, my reading for pleasure will go back up again. And, maybe I'll get to read about George Bent, and then I'll be like, dude, we need to do a story on him. So we'll see. So anyway, Collins reported on several things that went well, what didn't go well, the quality of their munitions, and praised a variety of soldiers for their service. The casualties amending the expedition were much fewer than could have been anticipated. It arises from the fact that the Indians, when near us, fired too high, not understanding their new arms and ammunition, and that our men obeyed orders, fought systematically, and manifested great prudence and adroitness in imitating the Indian cunning. Moving and fighting in the Indian country is a distinct branch of service that few understood and that can only be learned by actual service. So he complained about not having enough ammunition, which George Bent had noted in our episode on Mud Springs, that it appeared like they were running out of ammunition. So he probably was right in his guess there, because Collins was complaining they didn't have enough munitions. But Collins did say that, his men fought well, but the men that fight out here need the experience of fighting like Native Americans. They obeyed all the orders that were given. So I think Collins is kind of praising himself as well, saying, I knew how this worked, and when I told my men do this, this, and this, they listened to me, and that's why we were successful. Yeah. It's probably somewhere in between all of that.
Kind of tooting your own horn. But, I won't deny that, that's what the Native Americans always lacked as an advantage towards the American military, as they were the American military. They were soldiers. They learned how to fight in many different ways than the Native Americans did. So. Yeah.
So Collins believed the Native Americans were going to continue to the Powder River country, but people should expect more attacks as they continue to move on, and said special attention should be paid to posts on the Platte, particularly Deer Creek and Platte Ridge, which were in immediate danger. And in McDermott's writings, I think he said he thought Collins was prescient in that, but Collins had also been out here for about 3 years, I think. So he kind of knew these are the places that are vulnerable. These are the places that are going to be in danger, and Deer Creek and Platte Bridge are in immediate danger, which he was right about. Mm-hmm. So Collins closed his report by explaining that his experience in the area was sufficient to mention ways to get rid of Native Americans. Having been nearly 3 years in this service and being about to leave it, I venture to add a word as to the policy to be pursued. I beg to repeat the suggestions which I have heretofore made, that the permanent cure for the hostilities of time northern Indians is to go into the heart of their buffalo country and build and hold forts till the trouble is over. A hasty expedition, however successful, is only a temporary lesson, whereas the presence of troops in force in the country where the Indians are compelled to live, avid subsist, would soon oblige them to sue for peace and accept such terms as the government may think proper to impose. The Black Hills, Bighorn Mountain, Yellowstone country are all rich in minerals, but this wealth cannot be made available while hostile bands of Indians are roaming over the country. If these Indians could be induced to remove north toward the main Missouri and remain there, it would open up an immense region for mining and agriculture which cannot be now reached. They would be in a fine buffalo country and out of the way of collisions with the whites, which are always liable to occur if they are near together. It would also separate them from southern Indians and prevent the plotting and combining which now exists between them. There are 2 points I would respectfully indicate as suitable locations for the posts spoken of. One about the beat of time, Little Missouri of the mountains near the Three Buttes, and the other at some proper place on Powder River. An expedition starting from the Missouri near Fort Pierre and following the Old Traders Trail west of the forks of the Cheyenne, thence to the head of the Little Missouri of the Mandans, thence to Powder River, would be joined at some proper post by another from Fort Laramie, and if in sufficient force, it could hardly fail to accomplish its object. So he's basically given them a blueprint of how to eliminate.
How to put up the web.
Yeah. Collins's performance was criticized years later by Private George Rowan of Company D, 7th Iowa Cavalry, who wrote an article in the National Tribune on January 30th, 1890, so 25 years later. He said Collins was a good man, but as a soldier and officer, he was a mere cipher with shoulder straps.
Take that.
Yeah. Rowan said when they arrived at the river, Collins wanted to cross it and fight the Native Americans, something he was sure would have been the greatest slaughter that ever occurred in the West would have taken place, the Custer Massacre not excepted. He said all the officers present earnestly advised Collins not to take this action. Sorry, I'm on cat duty and I have to throw this little ball so my cat can go chase it because my cat thinks he's a dog. Rowan said it was Lieutenant Brown with a howitzer that saved the day, not Collins's leadership. George Nelson agreed with Rowan, but Francis M. Drake of Company B of the 11th Ohio wrote in the National Tribune in 1898 that Collins should have received credit for his good management of the forces in the two-day battle. In a letter to the Rocky Mountain News on February 21st, just 12 days after the battle, an anonymous enlisted man also praised Collins as a man of pluck and courage who had laid off his straps and went into the fight with as much coolness as the hero of 100 battles. This soldier wrote Collins encouraged the men to make sure aim and to make sure aim and not waste any ammunition.
Jesus. Isn't that proof that all the people back then just had nothing else better than to do?
Yeah.
To write about other people. Weren't these guys soldiers doing their own thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
They just had nothing else better
dude?
to do but to criticize other officers.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And I hate the anonymous bit about it, because when I worked at the Star-Herald, if you wouldn't sign your name in a letter to the editor, you couldn't be anonymous.
Yeah.
And I apologize for the noise. That's Londo walking over my discarded papers. Because this is a family podcast, and Londo the cat is
Londo's
my
cat
family.
Hey, Londo.
Oh, look, he meowed for you, too. This anonymous soldier also wrote, "All honor to Colonel Collins and his brave men. Long may they live to chastise the bloodthirsty and thieving red devils of the West." The editor of the paper had something different to say. So when I read that, I was like, really, dude? You're a jerk. You're a jerk. And then the editor responded, "The world stands aghast. The sun is darkened, the moon turned to blood. Dreary storms sweep over the earth. The future is dark and dreary. Colonel Collins, a veteran whose locks are silvered by the snows of many winters, had wantonly slaughtered some scores or hundreds of inoffensive, friendly, Pacific noble red men. Indian fighters and haters had their day." So,
Jesus.
having been in a newspaper, I picture this happening. This anonymous letter came in. The editor was like, yeah, no, we're not putting this in. Gets into an argument with the publisher, who says, I'm the publisher, I'm your boss, put the dang letter in. Fine, but I'm writing my own thing too.
And I'm going to make it way more eloquent in writing.
Yep.
Way more eloquent. I'm going to make this petty officer whatsoever look like an idiot.
Yep. Yeah. I've seen things like that happen before, and that's exactly what I thought when I read that. I'm like, oh yeah, he's basically letting you know that as editor, he's not allowed to say he didn't want that in his paper, but he's
my
telling you
three syllables are better than your one. So,
there you go. Well, buddy, it's over there. I can't reach it. You need to go get it and bring it back. And nobody taught him this. We found this cat abandoned at 6 weeks. He was wild, and he had goo in his eyes, so he couldn't see. Nobody taught him, and he has never been around a dog, but he plays fetch.
He's a fetch cat.
Any rolled up piece of paper you can just throw, he'll go get it and bring it back to you. I don't get it, but my grandma said all the cats out in Nebraska are weird, so maybe it's true. We'll see, because I had cats growing up. None of them played fetch.
This comes from the state that had the Broadway musical Cats.
That ran forever.
It did, and we're the weird ones.
Hey, don't you mess with cat lover. So, with no clear victor, fighting did resume on February 13th. So, we said we were just going to let them keep going north, and we watched for 50 miles, fires going. On February 13th, the men of Company G, 11th Ohio, had a skirmish at Laprelle Creek with the Sioux. The soldiers lost their commander, Captain Levi M. Reinhardt. George Nelson was one of the many soldiers who came to respect the Native Americans. He wrote, "They were well-armed, well-mounted, cunning, and brave. In fact, they fought like old warriors from a way back." As a result, orders came from Washington to protect the Union Pacific Railroad from attacks, and recommended Brigadier General Patrick E. Connor assume command in the region. Connor was noted for his command against the Western Shoshone. And let me just say, it was really hard to spell your name wrong, because he spells it the different way. Orders were also sent for more soldiers, sufficient to control and protect the area. McDermott wrote that Connor received his orders on February 27th to meet with the division commander, Grenville M. Dodge, in Denver to discuss how he would proceed with his command. The first troops ordered to the front were 2 regiments of recycled Confederate prisoners, the so-called galvanized Yankees, who received their instructions in late February. The Indian War of 1865 had begun in earnest. So we didn't stop fighting them. We kept fighting them. And it's going to go on, and we'll cover other skirmishes as time goes on. I think all the battles are important because, people die. One leads to another. I think Mud Springs is a little more important just because we had accounts from both sides, and that continued on into Rush Creek, even though they're 2 different battles. George Bent was there and documenting as well.
Well, it's interesting from a history point of view how the Sand Creek and all of them fit together.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
And we all know the eventual outcome, and unfortunately, things will continue to get worse for the Native Americans. I'm not going to continue on with the next battle and the next battle and the next battle. No. We'll be shifting to something different next week. While I was researching this, it's been coming up a lot, Signal Butte, and we haven't done Signal Butte, and I now have a ton of stuff to read. That might be our next one, unless, I get one of those little squirrel moments where I'm like, ooh, what's that? And then I go do that. But we will probably do a person as well. And maybe, I don't know if we haven't done anything on the Japanese yet, but as we record this next Saturday.
Yeah, because I just recently saw something about that. Yeah.
Next Saturday, they're having an open house, so entry is free to the Japanese Hall.
That's right. That's what's going on.
There's a lady that I missed talking the last time when they celebrated the opening of it. I missed that. So she's going to be giving a talk, I believe, like at 10:30 next Saturday, and I'm going to go and listen and take notes and stuff. And I'll be able to run into Vicky and see if she would, she doesn't have to do it now because she's here for this stuff. But, hey, next time you're in town, come and sit and talk and ramble. Because my friend Sandra said she would come and talk about the Japanese out here because she's written academically and historically about it.
And I've been fascinated about that. I think that's, and I think that'd be good for us to get off topic for a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, not really off topic. We're still talking about Nebraska, but a little bit of a different shift in culture.
And see if I can't get Sandra to come over one day and just sit and talk with us. We don't have to have anything scripted because Sandra will correct me anyway, and then I'll start to get frustrated, and I'll just throw the script away, and I'll just be like, just talk, Sandra. But she knows the history really, really well, and, Vicky saved the Japanese Hall, which was important to people here at the time, and she has the family connection and the family point of view. So I want to do some episodes on that, and it'll probably be split up into a whole bunch of different things. I mean, you and I will probably sit here. We'll have to reserve a day for like 3 or 4 hours, and then just we can split it up later. But I did see the press release go out that they're going to be doing some special events on May 10th, 2025. Is when they're going to hold it. So if you're listening to this before then, which I don't think any of you will be because this is set to go out the Wednesday after that, I could always do it was so great. You should have been there.
You should have been there.
But we're recording a little bit ahead of time right now. And I think it'll be worthwhile to go. I've wanted to hear some of this stuff for a while. And now I've got a chance to. But I want to shift back to some more people. We haven't done actual people in a while. And Signal Butte it's just a butte. It's, if I remember correctly, because I don't know a lot of its history, but if I remember correctly, it's like the first location where the Native Americans and the white man sat down to talk.
Oh, okay.
So it is important. It's historical. You can't go out there. It's on private property now. But anyway, it is something that's interesting, but we haven't done a person for a while. So if I don't get Signal Butte next time, it'll be a person, just because we need to get some people in. I want to come back to this side of western Nebraska as well. We haven't done anything in Sioux County for a while. It's kind of been east of us for a little while. And you know, we don't have anything planned or laid out, but we kind of have been heavily focused, like Bridgeport, Bayard area for a while. So we need to get back over here and get some things done that's not a building or a person. So anyway, that's it for us this time. Hope you all have a good week, and we'll see you next time. I just totally had a brain freeze about how does our closing go?
I'm Irene.
And I'm Connor.
This is Storytelling on the Plains.